Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Keir, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we hear about how the PM's new blood testing plans are working in one A&E, learn the environmental and financial impacts of the UK's unfit waterworks, and how AI tech is transforming care for stroke patients. And Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's tech guru, tells us about Elon Musk's takeover of the US government. Remember, if you're enjoying the episode, please do like and follow us. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7. But first, it was on this day in 1965 that speed limits were introduced on Britain's motorways. The initial limit was 70 miles per hour on all roads, but that rule became a permanent law just 2 years later. Before then, the motorway was a free-for-all. Earlier in the 60s, race car driver Jack Sears registered speeds of 185 miles an hour on them during practice for Le Mans. An intriguing new scheme in Nottingham has been delivering some very interesting results, and it suggests that many of us might not even be aware of what is going on in our own bodies. The new scheme, which asks patients attending A&E to take a blood test to screen for viruses, has already identified 28 cases of blood-borne diseases in its first 100 days. Undiagnosed cases of HIV, hepatitis B and hepatitis C have been picked up in Nottingham's Queen's Medical Centre, which has screened nearly 17,000 patients since the programme launched over the summer. The tests happen automatically when patients aged 16 and over have blood taken during their visit to A&E, unless they choose to opt out. Dr. Ashini Fox is a HIV specialist in Nottingham University Hospitals. She spoke to us about why routine testing is so important.
Unfortunately, there is still a lot of misunderstanding and preconception about these infections, and that leads to considerable stigma. Opt-out testing means that everyone is automatically tested unless they decline the test. And that way, no one is singled out and no one is made to feel like they have been individually highlighted as someone at risk. It also means that we end up testing people who they themselves don't realise that they have had a risk, and so they have never been tested previously. The bottom line is that anyone can acquire a blood-borne virus. When we talk about HIV, for example, the main route of transmission is sexual transmission, but it can also be passed on through the sharing of needles during injecting drug use, for example, and it can be passed on from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth and breastfeeding.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer recently announced additional funding in hopes of eliminating new HIV transmissions by 2030 during a speech to mark World AIDS Day.
I am determined that this generation will be the one that ends new cases of HIV within England by 2030. I'm determined that we're going to do that. I said that last year. I say it again to you. We are now in power. We can do something about it. And it's very pleasing to be able to say, confirming that we'll be expanding A&E opt-out HIV testing, a programme that has carried out over 2 million HIV tests in the last few years.
With early detection saving lives and reducing transmission, the scheme has now been expanded nationally. We also spoke to Molly Hansell, the screening coordinator and clinical nurse specialist. What have you been hearing from people who've had these tests?
The patient feedback has been positive. There are posters around the emergency department informing them of the testing initiative and how to opt out, although very few people do. Some patients are surprised to receive a diagnosis of a blood-borne virus, especially as it's common to show no symptoms. However, most patients are glad that they have been found, as it means that they can start monitoring and treatment.
It's been another busy week in tech, particularly for Elon Musk, who seems to be running the US government now. We've also had a remarkable story uncovered by Google Maps and a rejection of government plans around AI. When it comes to all things tech, there's only one man we'd pick to be our unelected president, and that's the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. Will, did I miss an episode, or is Elon Musk running the US government?
Well, it seems like he is. I've just woken up to the world's most powerful country looking like it's being run by tweets, or actually around about 100 tweets and memes from good old Elon, posting negatively about a government spending bill. Now, Trump thinks too much money is being spent by the government in the US and did not want this to pass. And because US politics is quite fickle, thousands of Americans have called their congressperson and effectively destroyed consensus that this funding bill should pass. Essentially, Musk has stopped the government from functioning, and critical US services won't get the money they need because of a load of memes and shitposting from the world's richest man. What should have happened is that when Trump came into power at the end of January, he could start having his own say on the laws and rules around him. But Elon thought differently.
It seems crazy that a billionaire can tweet and change government policies or even shut down the US government. How do you think this plays out? Does Trump fire Musk, or does Musk fire Trump?
I honestly don't know, but Musk is apparently also considering injecting his influence into UK politics with a reported $100 million injection into Nigel Farage's reform. Whatever happens in America, though, expect more AI-generated memes of Elon with his top off and other Republican Congress members cleaning out the swamp. Either Elon or Donald will realise they're falling out of favour and will act. I'm just not sure which will go first.
This week saw the government introduce a new scheme for training AI, which would make published work available unless the creator actively opted out. How did that go down?
Understandably, there's been a big pushback from UK creatives, filmmakers, musicians, journalists and authors who don't fancy the tech companies being able to eventually make billions without the original creators earning a penny. Training essentially means hoovering up every word, picture, moving image and song to make artificial intelligence able to copy what's come before it. And this is all a bit of a mess though, as tech companies may just end up saying they're following UK AI law, but end up training their AI in another country where the content is still available. Let's not forget that the internet is one place, not tons of different global operations.
It's still not clear what big tech companies are using to train their AI models, is it?
It's still not clear, and there are actually no laws yet to govern it. Fearing eventual legal pressure, OpenAI, the folk behind ChatGPT, offered licensing deals to big publishers to ensure they would not be first in line to be sued. But assume anything and everything you post to the internet right now is being used to train AI. Ultimately, it's all covered by their million-page-long terms and conditions that you never bothered reading. No matter how you make a public post saying you don't consent or you do consent, none of that matters. They've already got the rights to use your content to train artificial intelligence.
And we've all seen those odd and awkward photos of people caught by the Google Maps camera. But the Spanish one caught something a bit more sinister, right?
This isn't a boozed-up Swindonian vomiting into a bin with no trousers on. This is an image of a man leaning into the boot of a car in northern Spain, which led police to make 2 arrests in a missing person case. A Cuban man in Spain had been reported missing by his family in November last year. His ex and her new partner were under suspicion, but this Google Maps image of a man loading a bulky white bag into the boot of a car tied the crime to these suspects. They were arrested, and a week later, the missing man's body was sadly found.
So what's the lesson here?
As we close out another year, there are more cameras monitoring our every move, no matter where we are. And while some may say this is Big Brother gone mad, we've seen 2 people arrested and justice for a murdered man as a result of Google Maps. Bonkers.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, bad news about your water bill and the US petitions to revoke polio vaccines. We've heard of AI in use across a wide range of industries and increasingly areas where there is a considerable resistance to artificial intelligence, or at least the use of data to train it. But one of the areas where AI's computing power is having a real impact is in the analysis of medical data. AI technology has been put to use helping doctors figure out exactly when a stroke happened by analysing brain scans, and it's already been used in some hospitals. It can help doctors decide how to effectively treat patients and was found to be twice as accurate as using the standard visual methods. The AI was trained on a data set of 800 brain scans where the stroke time was known, with researchers at Imperial College London, the Technical University of Munich and Edinburgh University being led by Dr. Paul Bentley. He explained what he learnt during the study.
Not only can it help us understand when the stroke began and whether the treatments are suitable, but it can also help us understand what is going to happen to that person in the future, so we can tell the patient and the relatives what's the likelihood of disability or the likelihood that they may be able to recover from the stroke. So this is all analytic information that we can extract from these scans, which is much more than we were able to do beforehand, where we were simply estimating purely on the basis of roughly how grey the area was.
We've been warned that the cost of a water bill in the UK will be on the up next year. They're expected to rise by an average of £86 according to the regulator, and the increases are partly because most of the big water companies need to make serious investment in improving their existing infrastructure and processing of wastewater. This week, Guy Linley-Adams from the Conservative charity WildFish spoke to BBC Breakfast. He thinks the changes required to fix sewage and waterworks are coming in too late.
Water bills should have been going up gently over the last 30 years to pay for the investment that hasn't been put in place. Now we're faced with a situation where the money has to come from somewhere. The money that the water companies have paid out to their shareholders in dividends and the like, that's gone, unfortunately. That's sitting behind a door in the Cayman Islands. And as a result of that, there will be a bill to pay here. And the fault for that is not with the ordinary bill-paying customer, it's with the government. And there's a question there as to where this money should now come from.
This is as sewage companies continue to be in the news. Thames Water, Yorkshire Water and Northumbrian Water have now been collectively fined £168 million for failing to manage their wastewater networks, which led to illegal sewage discharges into rivers and seas. The Office for Environmental Protection said sewage releases are only allowed in exceptional circumstances, like during heavy rainfall, but this has not always been the case. Water UK is the trade body for water firms. Their Chief Executive Officer, David Henderson, said the price rises were much needed.
I understand that bill rises are never welcome, but it is important to remember that since 2010, bills have been falling. In real terms, each and every year they've been falling, and if they'd only risen with inflation, they'd be about a quarter higher than today. So yes, these rises are higher than that, but it's because we're having to play catch up. We have not invested enough, and as a result, our system is crumbling. It's increasingly unable to cope with the needs of businesses and the needs of people and the environmental outcomes that we want to see too. So that is why we're having to invest so much more today than if we'd invested earlier on. And if we don't invest now, though, it's going to get worse later on. We are seeing houses as unable to be built. We're seeing businesses unable to expand. Even a cancer hospital in Cambridge was delayed because of a lack of water. So it's becoming very serious for our economy and for people. So we desperately want this investment. We're sorry about the bill rises, but anybody who finds them too much should get in touch with their local water company, because we are tripling the level of support available. Payment holidays, discounts and other forms of support are available to anybody who will find these rises too hard.
Earlier this week, he spoke about where the blame lays.
The system, unfortunately, has a design fault at its core. We mix rainwater and wastewater. So every time there's a big downpour of rain, the system is overwhelmed and then it flows into rivers. We want to end that. It means building huge storage tanks. It means preventing as much rainwater getting in the first place, and that's going to take investment.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, how social media is changing to protect kids, and we learn why a frog as old as a fossil needs help.
Right after this.
Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. One of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Welcome back.
Most people probably got the polio vaccine as kids, and it's largely responsible for almost wiping out the much feared virus. There are still a number of countries where the disease exists, but it can be lethal, particularly for children. The World Health Organization estimates that 20 million people alive today would have been paralysed if it weren't for the vaccine, and it's prevented at least 1.5 million deaths. But in America, Aaron Siri, a lawyer who's been associated with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., recently petitioned for the FDA to revoke the vaccine's approval. This move has sparked a to heated debate in the US, especially considering Donald Trump has nominated Kennedy as the US Health Secretary. Dr. Peter Hotez is a vaccine expert and spoke about his concerns over taking drugs off the market.
This kind of anti-vaccine rhetoric is part of a larger coordinated disinformation campaign, and the consequences we're now seeing. We've had not only an increase in measles outbreaks, as was just reported, from 4 to 16 from 2023 to 2024. We've had a 5-fold rise in pertussis, otherwise known as whooping cough, and now there's polio.
However, the lawyer Aaron Siri said it's false news.
He doesn't want to get rid of any vaccines. Mr. Kennedy has made very clear he just wants to make sure that there's transparency and that there's proper science. We should leave it to every American to judge.
Communication regulator Ofcom published its final codes of practice this week. Platforms have from now until March to assess illegal content on their site, or they could face fines of up to 10% of their global turnover. They're pushing tech firms to address online risks like child sexual abuse material, controlling or coercive behaviour, sexual violence and promoting suicide and self-harm. Dame Melanie Dawes, the regulator's chief executive, warned companies that penalties will begin to kick in next year.
We've all had to wait a very long time for the laws to be passed, but now we are moving forward to make sure that we drive the action across the industry. And those rules for teenagers to clean up the experience that they get, to tame those toxic algorithms, that will be coming through from April. Today we're announcing the broader protections against illegal content for everybody, but we are absolutely on this now and moving very fast through so that we can drive the action and the change that we need to see from tech companies. We're going to have to keep adding because the degree of change is so enormous online in technology and with new services coming up all the time. But I think really this is the last chance for the industry now. If they don't start to seriously change the way they operate their services, then I think those demands for things like bans for children on social media are going to get more and more vigorous, and it's going to be harder and harder to resist them. So I'm asking the industry now to get moving, and if they don't, they will be hearing from us with enforcement action from March.
However, some critics argue that the legislation doesn't go far enough, with many watching closely as March 2025 approaches to see how well platforms rise to the challenge. Ellen Roome is sceptical of Ofcom's approach. She lost her son Jules in 2022 and believes he may have taken part in an online challenge that went wrong. Here she is telling Good Morning Britain about the changes she'd like to see.
From a bereaved parent's perspective, it's a shame we're not doing more together. So that, for example, this is illegal issues, not harmful issues, that my understanding, and the children's code when that comes out. So it's just a phase, isn't it, stage? And I think everybody had just hoped that you would come out with this and enforce everything all in one go, and then come down hard on regulators to actually make a difference.
Similar legislation has passed through the Senate in America and hopes to impose a duty of care on social media platforms to help young and vulnerable users. United States Senator Richard Blumenthal spoke about how likely it is that the legislation will get passed in the House.
This bill has been through drafting, redrafting, revision, revisiting, and we've worked very hard on it for the sake of children. It will be a monumental step forward, and there is an urgency that we feel is very important for the Speaker to recognize. With all due respect, this bill should be given a vote. It will pass overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives, just like it did in the Senate.
A frog that once hopped alongside dinosaurs is now facing serious threats from humans and climate change. Chile's helmeted water toad is currently an ancient amphibian with bone structures that date back to 77 million years ago. It's one of the largest frogs in the world, growing up to a foot long in some cases. The amphibian has seen little genetic variation for millions of years, but scientists are now warning their future is at risk. Melissa Cancino is a veterinarian and founder of Chile's Proyecto Amphibia, and she's worried about the future of these frogs.
Today, it is highly threatened by factors such as climate change, habitat fragmentation, environmental degradation, and pollution. So gosh, it's really sad to know that a species that coexisted with dinosaurs, that survived a mass extinction, it's now highly threatened because of humans.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
When it's PCS time, you know the drill. Pack, research the new base, get the kids in school, because family supports family. At American Public University, we support military families with flexible, affordable online education that moves with you. As a military spouse, your tuition rate is the same as your partner's, just $250 per credit hour. American Public University, education that moves with you. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.